Sightseers in space, the thrill of a lifetime. But the risks that come with it might make you look before you launch. Space tourism, tonight at 8 on the free CBS News app.
Tonight, what's the basis for the Biden impeachment inquiry? Republicans make their case, and the suspect in the Baltimore Tech CEO murder is caught. But why was the repeat offender free? Then, a new manufacturing boom, where the jobs are being created on the CBS Evening News.
I don't think anybody's stronger. I don't think the country's better if you have a shutdown.
Conservative common sense economic policies work, and yet they're not working for our nation because President Biden doesn't believe in them.
If the Republicans nominate somebody that's electable, that is going to help bring the country together and not be so divisive, I will vote that way.
Democracy means rule of the people. Regardless of party, that means respecting free and fair elections, accepting the outcome, win or lose.
Hi, I'm Scott McFarland in Washington, and welcome to America Decides. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are running out of time to avert a government shutdown with no deal that can pass both the House and the Senate anywhere in sight. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is pushing his colleagues to get behind a short-term spending bill, but multiple House conservatives tell CBS News they'll never vote for it. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is criticizing McCarthy, saying he's giving in to far-right demands and is pushing a bill in the upper chamber over the finish line to keep the government open through mid-November. But House lawmakers remain sharply divided over spending.
I am up in the air on everything right now. Everything is on the table for me.
Including FCR?
We'll see. I haven't seen anything that I would vote for at this juncture. I may vote for a couple of the appropriations bills. We're working through it right now.
Either the Senate is going to enforce our border security or no deal and let them deal with the shutdown.
What's the source of the frustration?
My frustration is that we're $33 trillion in debt, running $2 trillion annual deficits with no real end in sight. That's my frustration.
My teammate, CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian, joins us at the Capitol in the middle of what has been pretty exhausting and unprecedented week that may just be getting started. So, Nicole, let's start off with that spending plan that House conservatives say they're going to try to get a vote on tomorrow. What might be in it? What happens next?
Well, we're still waiting to see actual text of this legislation, but I did speak to Congressman Byron Donalds a short time ago, who did say that they are continuing to work on a framework. He believes, obviously, border security could be a key part of this package, which is something that the Speaker has been advocating for the better part of this week, although we know that that could be a sticking point for those in the Senate, although, you know, some senators are working on a potential border security amendment on their side. So that being said, you know, we don't know anything until we see more text and a path forward. In terms of talking to Congressman Donalds about that, you know, the other issue is that you have House Freedom Caucus members who have since put out a letter to the Speaker saying that they have some additional questions before they vote on any type of short-term funding package. And so I discussed that with the congressman to see what the latest is there. Take a listen. And how confident are you at this juncture that we can avoid a government shutdown?
Well, listen, we always have questions for the Speaker and about the direction of our chamber. But this is really about what is going to be the working process to pass our 12 bills. What does that look like? Are we working weekends? I believe we should. Are we going to be here next week? I believe we should. What is going to be the urgency or the speed of the Appropriations Committee meeting and then floor action here? Obviously, people see now we're running basically amendments all day long, a couple vote series. Members are on the floor to 2 o'clock in the morning going through other amendments. Vote series are running late. We just want to have an idea of what the workflow is going to look like to accomplish our business.
But can you guarantee there won't be a shutdown, or is it inevitable at this point?
I can't guarantee that.
So you heard the congressman there really kind of non-committal about whether or not there will be a shutdown or not. He even went so far as to tell me he thinks if there is one, could last a matter of days, potentially weeks, depending on how long it takes for them to finish their work. Look, one of the hangups here also has to do with appropriation bills. As you know, Scott, the House is preparing to move forward with a package of several bills. It's possible those might not even go until tomorrow as they kind of try to work through this process. So there really is a lot of uncertainty right now over the path forward, although everyone still seems committed to try to find a resolution somewhere.
With time short and with the Democratic leader today saying Democrats will not vote for these Republican bills, and we're less than 72 hours to the deadline. And Democrats had that clock going, didn't they, today? The shutdown clock, as the U.S. House Oversight Committee had its first hearing post-impeachment inquiry announcement into Hunter Biden. I know you were there for that, talking to folks involved. What was your takeaway of what you saw over what was about a 7-hour hearing?
Yeah, it did go on for some time. And, you know, what we saw was really a lot of theatrics, quite frankly, in the sense that, you know, Republicans put forth what they believe or purport to be evidence that could potentially link the president to his family's business dealings, to the business dealings of his son, Hunter. They believe that there is something there. That is why they say that there must be some type of investigation. That's why they want an inquiry to move forward. This is after months of investigations where they have collected bank records and interview transcripts and spoken to IRS whistleblowers who testified before Congress. And they say all of this really is substantial evidence that they believe is indicative of, you know, the president potentially mixing his official business with his personal. Now, granted, the White House has denied any wrongdoing here. And what was interesting is that some of the witnesses that were called to this hearing, some of them were Republican witnesses, said that they don't believe that there is enough evidence at this time, that it does merit further review. So you also had a number of Democrats really blasting Republicans for holding this hearing in the first place, given everything that's going on with a potential shutdown.
Just a few moments left, Nicole. We know Senator Menendez had his long-awaited lunch and speech to his Senate Democrats, 30 of whom want him to resign. He says he's sticking around. Where does this go next, if anywhere, in the Senate?
Yeah, well, we did talk to Senator Menendez shortly after he spoke to Senate Democrats. Take a listen to what he told us after that meeting.
Can you serve effectively if you've lost the confidence of your fellow senators, many of whom are Democrats?
I will continue to cast votes on behalf of the people of New Jersey, as I have for 18 years. And I am sure when they need those votes, they'll be looking forward for me to cast those votes.
Now, as you know, Scott, more than half of the Senate Democratic caucus has called on the senator to resign. But as he just indicated there, he doesn't intend to go anywhere. That was a message he conveyed to his colleagues during that lunch earlier today.
It's an awful lot of stuff to happen in a few hours' time. Nicole, see you back up there shortly. Thank you for your help. President Biden spoke in Arizona today about the state of democracy in the United States and warned against the impact of, quote, MAGA extremists criticizing Donald Trump. His remarks come just one day after the second Republican presidential debate, which the former president skipped. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now. Ed, you watched not just the president speak today, but you watched that debate last night. What did you make of what Mr. Biden said about Donald Trump during those remarks late today?
Well, once again, Scott, he's using a major address on his concerns about the future of American democracy to directly criticize his predecessor and warn that as long as he is dominating the Republican Party, the U.S. Constitution remains at risk. He denounced former President Trump for attacking reporters, for fomenting disbelief or concerns about voting results, and especially for recently calling for the death of the outgoing chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, suggesting that he committed treasonous acts, but also faulted the Republican Party writ large for not denouncing the former president for saying such things, suggesting that if they claim to be so pro-military, perhaps they should have stood up for Milley. We have some of what the president had to say in his remarks. We should probably hear from him directly.
Democracy means rule of the people, Not rule of monarchs, not rule of the money, not rule of the mighty. Regardless of party, that means respecting free and fair elections, accepting the outcome, win or lose. It means you can't love your country only when you win.
We should point out, Scott, he's obviously giving this address here in the major battleground state of Arizona. This will be one of the few states up for grabs that will determine who exactly wins the White House next year. And he is doing this by cloaking himself in the legacy of his late friend, the former Senator John McCain. They announced today that some of the money from the American Rescue Plan that was passed in the last 2 years will go towards building a new library and museum dedicated to the late senator. It's going to be on the campus here of Arizona State University in Tempe, Arizona. And by doing that, tries to attach himself to the legacy of the senator who remains revered in this state, that splits its vote essentially three ways. 33% or so Democrat, 33% or so Republican, 33% or so independent or no party affiliation. You may see a three-way Senate race here next year. The president, however, wants to make sure that of those three groups, he gets as many of them as possible, and he knows the way traditionally statewide candidates win in this state is by making an appeal across those three spectrums.
We're talking about that possible three-way Senate race. Could include former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake for Republicans. You met up with her in Arizona. What did she have to say about it?
We actually met up last night, Scott, in California. She showed up as a surrogate for former President Trump, who, of course, wasn't debating, and suddenly availed herself of all of us there on Media Row. This is a woman who ran in this state for governor last year by openly attacking and denouncing reporters. She is, of course, a former TV anchor herself. Suddenly started making herself available to the same channels that she railed against as a candidate last year, and was openly offering herself up for interviews, not only last night, but in the future. And we talked a little bit about the now expected announcement that she'll make on October 10th here, expected to join the Senate race. Take a listen.
Why would you want to be a member of the U.S. Senate? Keep hearing you're preparing to run.
I'm considering it. I'm giving it some very serious thought because we have an opportunity to pick up a Senate seat. And right now we have two Democrats running. One's trying to now call herself an independent, which is laughable.
Kirsten Sinema.
Considering that she's voted with Joe Biden 95% of the time. And you know, every time Chuck Schumer says jump, she says how high. And so this is not where Arizona is.
Does he think you should run for the Senate?
I think he would be open to the idea.
So Kari Lake expected to join the Senate race next month to take on the incumbent Senator Kirsten Sinema, who hasn't officially announced she's doing so, but is expected to run again, and the Democrat Ruben Gallego, who currently represents part of the Phoenix area. Scott, it's going to be a marquee race next year.
Oh, a three-way race has all kinds of potential for wild dynamics. In Arizona, Ed O'Keefe, thank you very much. Several prominent Republican donors are looking for an alternative from the current field of GOP presidential hopefuls. I'll tell you the person they're talking about coming up next. You're streaming America Decides.
When weather turns extreme, CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
That desired farm is a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Politics isn't a game. Why aren't you holding yourself to that standard? Politics is about policy. Was this the right way to actually get this done? I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation is not an anchor, it's not an actress. You are up here to moderate a conversation. That means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
America Decides, taking you inside American democracy.
The most important stories on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis.
You're going to hear a lot of reporting.
It is clearly a pivotal moment.
Gun control, the economy, education.
Both sides of the political aisle fight it out for power.
Bringing you the analysis that you need.
Thoughtfully, with context.
Be part of the conversation.
On CBS News Streaming.
Welcome to America Decides.
She is a beloved American icon and head of a media empire. But is Oprah Winfrey happy? How do you define happiness?
Yeah, I call it happierness.
Find out when we go person to person.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
We have made substantial progress. We're on the right path. Virginians know it. They see the transformation underway, and they want more progress, and they want it faster.
Welcome back to America Decides. CBS News has learned some of the country's biggest GOP donors are ramping up efforts to get Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin to enter the 2024 race for president. Earlier, he was pressed on a potential White House bid.
I've told you, I'm totally focused on Virginia elections, and that's what we're going to get done.
Well, what would hold you back?
focused.
What's holding you back?
I'm focused. We have got to hold our House and flip our Senate.
This news is scooped from our CBS News chief election and campaign correspondent, Robert Costa, who joins us here with this new reporting. So you're hearing from donors, panic, deep concern. What specifically are they saying, and how does Glenn Youngkin end up fitting into all this?
There's a combination of factors right now that are fueling this talk of Youngkin maybe getting into the race. He didn't seem to really deny it there. He didn't open the door, but he didn't close the door either. He sees a lot of political risk on the horizon based on my conversations with his associates. But you have people like Bill Barr, Trump's former attorney general, John Bolton's former national security advisor, real Trump critics. You have billionaires like Thomas Petterfy, who are saying the money would be there if Youngkin decides to run. But what's really notable to me is that what is really pushing this is not just dissatisfaction with Trump as the potential nominee. It's a sense that these debates, the first two debates, haven't provided a breakout star for the GOP donors, established Republicans to rally behind and say that person could be our standard bearer. Now, I've gotten some feedback today since reporting this from some of the rival campaigns, and they say they can't stand this talk of Youngkin. They want him to close the door because they believe as long as Youngkin keeps the door open, even a sliver, money stays on the side, and they starve for dollars and attention in the race, actually as candidates.
During a pivotal period of time. You know, the resilience the former president has in the national polls is not replicated in the early state polling so far, New Hampshire and Iowa. Let's take a listen to some New Hampshire Republican voters and their thoughts on the state of the field right now.
If the Republicans nominate somebody that's electable, that is going to help bring the country together and not be so divisive, I will vote that way.
I don't really think anyone's quite captured the American people's attention so far. Definitely not mine.
I do like that they stopped dunking on the one person not there and started dunking on Vivek instead. It seems more fair.
I'm still undecided. Probably not Trump, but out of the other candidates, it's not quite decided.
Why not Trump?
Just because I don't think he's going to win the general election.
That might be the backdrop why so many donors are so concerned, but it's getting pretty late pretty early. Iowa is January 15th. We are in fall already. Is there a sense that this has to be a decision made in the next 6-7 weeks?
For Youngkin, it's definitely a decision he has to make in the next 6 or 7 weeks. He wants to wait until the Virginia elections on November 7th. He keeps saying that on Fox News today. So they happen on November 7th. If you don't get in the next few days in early November, you have a month before all these major ballot deadlines in December for the March primary states. Youngkin, if he got in December or November, he would already miss several ballot deadlines, including in South Carolina and in Nevada, which would put him behind. But what you heard from those voters was so intriguing because what the problem is, according to not only Republican donors, but other candidates, is that the field remains so big. So there is obviously, just by hearing those voters' voices anecdotally, room for a Trump alternative. But as long as there's so many candidates in the race, they're all splitting the same vote. That's the not Trump vote. Senator Mitt Romney told me, he said he would welcome Youngkin to get in. He doesn't know him well. But he said, how is Youngkin going to solve the problem that so many candidates are running as the Trump alternative and Trump has all of his coalition all to himself?
Do you get any indication he might follow a Chris Christie model where somebody might want to take on Donald Trump head on to try to defeat Donald Trump?
No, that's not Youngkin's way. Youngkin ran in 2021, as you remember, as someone who kind of embraced the Trump voter but kept Trump at arm's length. That's the kind of race he would run, try to come in late, do his own thing. And there's a hope that maybe Trump gets hobbled at some point by the 4 criminal trials he's been facing and faces early next year.
Albert Costa, good work today. Good work every day. Thank you for joining us.
I'm glad I got a sticker from you today.
We'll take it. Up next, the tale of a suburban dad turned traitor. Our Major Garrett is out with a new podcast detailing the most damaging spy in FBI history. Major joins me to tell us about it. Coming up next, you're streaming America Decides.
When weather turns extreme, CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get prepared. Feel the forecast. Weather when it matters most on CBS Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
That desired farm, it's a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Politics isn't a game. Why aren't you holding yourself to that standard? Politics is about policy. Was this the right way to actually get this done? I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. To be moderator of Face the Nation is not an anchor, it's not an actress. You are up here to moderate a conversation. That means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
America Decides, taking you inside American democracy.
The most important stories on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis.
You're going to hear a lot of reporting.
It is clearly a pivotal moment.
Gun control, the economy, education.
Both sides of the political aisle fight it out for power.
Bringing you the analysis that you need.
Thoughtfully, with context.
Be part of the conversation.
On CBS News Streaming.
Welcome to America Decides.
She is a beloved American icon and head of a media empire. But is Oprah Winfrey happy? How do you define happiness?
Yeah, I call it happiness.
Find out when we go person to person.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to America Decides. It is launch day for CBS's new podcast, Agent of Betrayal, The Double Life of Robert Hanssen. It's hosted by Major Garrett. The podcast explores the story of one of the most damaging spies in U.S. history. Take a listen to the preview.
His espionage contributed to the execution of at least 3 individuals, and he caused hundreds of millions of dollars of damage to United States intelligence programs.
He violated everything that my FBI stood for.
And Major joins us now. He's CBS News' chief Washington correspondent. This is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
A lot of folks know Robert Hanssen died over the summer, but you were working on this long before. What drew you to this?
So, you remember, Scott, during lockdown, some people learned to make sourdough bread, some people learned to knit, or they worked on a musical instrument that they've never had a chance to. I created another podcast. 2 years of working on this. Why? Because having been in Washington since 1990, Scott, I have some familiarity with people who shade the truth or straight up lie. But I've never met or encountered or researched a liar of the magnitude, deadliness, and sort of 360 range as Robert Hanssen, a trusted insider in the FBI who worked on counterintelligence, sophisticated spy detection, worked next to the best in America at spy detection, and went undiscovered for more than 20 years as the most damaging spy in FBI history. His level of betrayal, his ability to conceal himself, all of that really set a hook in me.
One of the people you spoke with in the first episode is an FBI counterintelligence agent named David Major. I want to play some of what he told you, and I'll ask you something about it after this. Take a listen.
The budget people are some of the most sensitive and important people in the Bureau. There was a few people who knew everything, and because he was a budgeteer and an analyst, he almost knew everything.
As such, Hanssen could graze on a buffet of sensitive FBI documents.
You spoke to dozens of people. It's fascinating somebody with that prestige would sit down and want to talk about this.
Right.
How'd you do it?
More than 50 interviews. One of the reasons we were able to get to so many people is because this wasn't on camera.
Right.
Sometimes with sensitive cases like this, people don't want to talk about anything on camera. Podcast gives them a higher degree of comfortability. And it's really important what was mentioned there by David Major. One of the things that Robert Hanssen did that made him so successful is he went to lesser traveled places, bureaucratic places of the FBI, this idea that he was in the budget division. Why would the budget division be helpful to someone who wanted to spy for the Soviets against the United States? Well, when you have access to the budget division, among the things you can always check out is who's surveilling on the weekends, because there would have to be a special budget request for that time allotted, and there have to be a special payout for it. So all the while, Robert Hanssen knows if anyone's looking at him, everyone's checking on him. He was also kind of a computer geek, well before many of his FBI contemporaries. So he's roaming all over the FBI computer system, constantly watching to see if anyone has any whiff at all of what he's up to. That's one of the ways he became successful in that sense of the word, and highly damaging.
You did a lot of original reporting. This is a boatload of original reporting, including records obtained under the Freedom of Information Act. What struck you most? Maybe what surprised you in all that research?
All the things I've talked about surprised me. The depth and magnitude of this, the ability to hide within plain sight is a phrase we heard often. And this idea that the FBI was a different agency than it is now. For example, in 22 years, Robert Hanssen was never polygraphed. He was never given a financial audit of any kind. No one ever looked into anything about him, even though, as we document time and time again, there were red flags about his behavior. Things that people thought were strange, but not quite strange enough. What was that hesitation? Why was he able to cover his tracks so well? And here's the great thing about the Hanssen story. It represents, on one hand, Scott, the greatest failure in FBI history. This horribly damaging mole right under everyone's noses. And once they figured out who it was, the investigation and the trap they sprung to capture and make Robert Hanssen confess and plead guilty to monstrous espionage charges ranks for the FBI in its top 10 of most successful investigations. So right next to one another, you have the most conspicuous failure and one of the most conspicuous success stories.
A few quick housekeeping questions. When does this post?
Today. First episode is today. It is episodic in every sense of the word. You can't binge it, sorry to say. because we're still reporting it out, still producing it. We're a good 5 episodes in that are pretty well locked. Certainly one is all ready to go.
Is it every Thursday?
Every Thursday.
Okay, and it's about how long?
About 40 minutes.
Right. That's a lot to get in.
That's a lot to get in.
In 40
Perfect
minutes.
for a great workout on your elliptical or your Peloton, or for a nice long run or walk or anything you're doing.
And the takeout continues.
The takeout continues completely separate. Agent of Betrayal is just another one of my many side hustles.
Looking forward to it. Major, thank you very much. As a reminder, you can listen to Agent of Betrayal, The Double Life of Robert Hansen, starting today, as Major says, on Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music. New episodes, as Major just told us, come out weekly on Thursdays. Major, looking forward to it. Thank you. That does it for today. You can stream America Decides Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. You're streaming CBS News.
When weather turns extreme, CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real, you'll have time to get